Hey everyone, Dr. Shook here. Hope you're all doing well. It is a beautiful day in North Carolina. Beautiful, beautiful day. It's Father's Day, so to all the dads out there, happy Father's Day. Keep putting those kids first. This is a live stream. I decided to come outside, sit in the sun for just a little bit. And so what I wanted to talk about was really, this morning I posted a link to a research article that came out talking about connections between inflammation and how inflammation can disrupt motivation and how it can contribute to depression. And so I've talked about this. You know, you may not have seen this. I've done hundreds of live streams and hundreds of videos, but I've talked about this to some degree in the past. This is just one additional article or research paper of hundreds of, if not thousands of papers today that are showing us the connections between inflammation and other systems of the body. So, for example, inflammation's an immune response, right? So you develop inflammation as a result of an inflammatory process. Something's driving inflammation, right? But it's an immune process. And what we're finding out, what we're finding out for a tremendous number of disease processes, is that the systems of the body can't be looked at individually. So you can't just look if someone has depression and say, well, what is that? You know, is that just a brain thing? Is it something going on with the brain itself, like a physical anatomical thing, or is this some kind of like biochemical thing that's occurring? You know, or is it something hormonal? Because see, and so the hormonal impact would be endocrine, like your hormonal system. An anatomical thing would be the nervous system, right? The physical structure of the brain. Another system that could disrupt the brain and its physiological function would be like the immune system. What we're talking about with inflammation can be very disruptive. So my point is that you've got to look at the other systems of the body, how they're breaking down, and understanding that there's a crosstalk between systems. And that if you're not acknowledging that, I mean, that's when I talk about the thyroid, that's really all I talk about, is how everyone's looking medically. You're getting assessed for the amount of hormone that you have, right? They're just checking you to see if you have enough hormone. And then if you have enough hormone based on pretty much one marker, which is TSH, then everything's fine. And that is ridiculous based on what we know today, based on the physiology that we understand today. That's ridiculous. That is an outdated, extremely outdated way to assess any hormonal physiology, including the thyroid. And I say that with all due respect to the people that are trying to help you, with your doctors, everyone that's trying to help you, because that's how they're taught classically, because that is the system that they are in, and that is the system that you are looking to for assistance with your health problems. It's called our medical healthcare system, and that system is based on identifying a disease, and the disease being treatable with a medication typically, or a procedure, it's really a symptom-based model, and it does not address the physiology. It doesn't address really what's breaking down. And it's not that the doctors don't want to, it's not that there's a great conspiracy or anything like that. It's just the fact that it's old science, quite frankly. Things are being discovered and researched so rapidly that healthcare systems can't adapt. Doctors can't adapt because we have an epidemic of severe disease throughout the entire population, that they have their hands full just taking care of people that are in a crisis situation. So how in the world do they have time to help us, one of us that comes in that doesn't feel well, and their labs look okay based on what they typically do, looking for this crisis, this epidemic that they're trying to stop, of diabetes and cancers and everything that you just named, that people are coming in falling apart. And here we are, not falling apart like that. Maybe psychologically, maybe in our mind, maybe we actually feel that way, but you got to understand the system that you're going into. So when you start looking at these connections between motivation and inflammation, and people were asking me, could I clarify? I mean, let me clarify it as simply as possible. Inflammation, if there's inflammation, this paper in particular, many other papers show us very similar biochemistry. The inflammation disrupts your brain's sensitivity to dopamine. It's one of your neurochemicals, the neurotransmitters, and that can affect motivation, and that can cause and contribute to depression. And if you look at almost any of the psychiatric, the psychology, the research on depression today, almost every single paper talks about inflammatory levels. Almost every single paper, and it's because, like what I teach you guys every day that I teach, I'll say, listen, whenever I'm trying to help someone figure out what's going on with their health, what I'll do is I'll cast a wide net, because you cannot help someone. You cannot rule out all of the possibilities, or you can't rule out the possibilities that we can more easily assess and check through with a biochemical analysis by just looking at TSH. It's not sufficient. It's insufficient. I'm sorry, it's insufficient. It's outdated. It's inadequate. Yes, it's what your insurance considers as the standard of care, but it is outdated. So we have to cast a wide net, and I say this time and time again. As soon as I start, someone comes to see me and they have a thyroid problem. They know they have a thyroid problem. Let's just say they know they have a thyroid problem. They come to me and they're like, I want to see if my thyroid's okay. You know what? The first thing I look at when I order labs on them is not their thyroid chemistry at all. Ever. It's never their thyroid chemistry. I look at the inflammatory markers first. You could come to me with just about any symptom, any chronic, unexplained issue, and I'm going to look at your inflammatory markers and inflammatory chemistry first, because it has such a broad-reaching, wide-reaching impact across multiple systems of the body. Because see, when you have an inflammatory response, your body produces these chemical messengers. The immune system does. They're called cytokines. The cytokines have this ability to cross-talk with other systems, meaning that it's an immune-based, it's a protein produced by the immune system. It's a signaling protein, but it it does have an impact on the nervous system, as in the case of this paper that I published, or that I provided a link to. It has an impact on your nervous system, so it can impact a neuronal firing and neuronal responsiveness due to an impact on your neurotransmitters, the chemicals that run the brain. It can have a profound, and it is the most common reason that I find people have thyroid symptoms. I want you guys to take that into consideration. Inflammatory levels, high inflammatory levels, it's the most common reason that I find people have thyroid-related symptoms, like hypothyroid symptoms. The most common reason. Not the fact that the hormone's low. That's not it. Because see, most people that I'm working with, they know they have a thyroid problem. They've been to their doctor and they're on a medication, and either medications are never right, and there's all kinds of reasons for that, because it's hard to balance or try to understand what someone's body's need is for a hormone when it's fluctuating up and down due to an autoimmune condition that the doctor has no idea how to support. And so people they're on medication, someone's taking medications and the medications are not working, or they make them feel good and then they feel bad. There's no rhyme or reason for this fluctuation in what's happening, and they're at the end of their rope. They cannot figure out what else to do or why their body's responding the way it is. And what I'll do is I'll look at the thyroid hormone, and what ends up happening is the thyroid hormone, a lot of times it's pretty good. Like, it wouldn't explain. I mean, it's not. I'm not gonna say it's like always perfect, because it's almost never like perfect when you look at all 10 thyroid related markers that we'll look at. But the inflammatory chemistry is almost always the issue. The C-reactive protein is elevated. The homocysteine levels are up. They have an autoimmune condition that has not been assessed and supported from a functional perspective. And when you have an ongoing and an active immune response, when you have a higher inflammatory load, when you have homocysteine that's elevated, you're going to have some very significant problems with your body's ability to utilize your thyroid hormone that's in circulation. It's a sensitivity issue. You know, remember when I talk about this, if you watch my other videos, you'll see that one of the things I always try to anchor our conversations to is what physiology is being disrupted here. Okay? 4 phases, right? 4 phases of every hormone, not just thyroid hormone, every hormone. There's production of the hormone by the gland. There's transportation of the hormone through the circulatory system by little proteins in the blood. There is sensitivity at the cell. Do you have cellular responsiveness to the hormone that's in circulation? Because it might be there at the cell, but the cell's not responding to it. because that can happen. And guess what? That's where inflammation really does has this profound impact that causes you to not feel well. Okay, so what happens is that the inflammatory load dampens and blunts receptor cell. Think of the cells of your body as these balloons, and on the outside of them, there are all of these little docking stations where a hormone can attach itself and stimulate changes inside the cell. Okay, those are receptors. The hormones in circulation attach themselves to those receptors and stimulate change in the cell. If it cannot attach itself to the cell, or if it can attach to the cell but the cell's not as responsive because of higher inflammatory loads, then you get a diminished cellular response to the hormone. Okay? That's where you end up having this profound dampening and diminished impact due to inflammation, and it affects all of these hormones. It doesn't just affect the thyroid. It affects your estrogen. It affects every hormone, every single hormone. And it has other negative effects on your systemic physiology, on the nervous system. I mean, listen, you cannot look at these problems as just a quantity-based issue. I cannot tell you how many issues you're going to have, how much frustration you're going to have, and how narrow of an approach looking at only your quantity of your thyroid hormone is. Now, it's a reasonable place to start. It is something to consider. But really, do you understand how much time I've seen lost due to this type of this inadequate approach? I can't tell you. I see people all the time, and people talk to me about years of their life that is lost, like completely changed life due to these issues. And the thing is that, you know, it's not even that whenever I work with someone, it's not that we're going to fix their issues. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, because the human body is very complex. But the issue is that the longer that you wait with like autoimmunity, which most people that are hypothyroid have autoimmune conditions. That's just the fact. That's a fact. Like 9 out of 10 people, we think at least have an autoimmune condition causing them to have a low thyroid function. So that, and very few people that are hypothyroid understand that. Very few people. So if you know someone, and I guarantee you if you're watching this and you're hypothyroid, you know someone taking thyroid hormone medications, because it's like one of the top prescribed medications in the world, in the United States especially. The reasons that that your friend, your family member, whoever is hypothyroid, they have at least, some of the research is even higher, but a 9 out of 10 chance, 90% chance of having that low thyroid condition because their immune system's attacking the gland and destroying the gland's ability to produce the hormone. And then as a side effect, you have a higher inflammatory load because it's an autoimmune condition. You understand? So this is where that inflammatory issue comes into play. This autoimmunity doesn't sit still. That's where I was really going with that. The autoimmune conditions don't sit still. So when you go in and you don't feel well with a thyroid issue, you need to find out if you're autoimmune. If you're autoimmune, the autoimmune process must be addressed. You must address the autoimmunity. You've got to try to support it from a functional perspective, to try to understand the things. Why is your immune system attacking your body? These are the questions you need to be asking in your head. Like, why is my immune system attacking my body? Why is the system that's designed to defend me attacking my own cells and my own tissue? Right? That's what autoimmunity is. And then what you've got to do is you have to look at and try to assess, like in an ideal world, we would all be able to do quantitative testing to assess what the immune system is reacting to. So for example, what I like to do clinically with people that are autoimmune is I like to look at a lot of biomarkers, but I like to look at their immune system very closely, and I like to assess and determine what type of food proteins is their immune system reacting to, what type of pathogens do they show immunological reactivity to. So are they reacting to bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites? Are they reacting to chemicals? So a lot of people don't realize this, but the chemicals that are ubiquitous throughout our environment. I'm sitting outside, but I'm no doubt breathing in exhaust and other chemicals in the air around here. And my son made a good observation. So we're in a pretty small town, but we do have, it's kind of cool, we do have an airport here. It's a very small airport. And I didn't realize it when we first moved into this house, but we are like in the flight path to the airport. So, you know, planes fly over us. I mean, they burn fuel. So we probably get higher levels than someone that lives out in the middle of nowhere where there's not a flight path. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there's stuff in the air. There's exhaust. There's a ton of stuff, but there's stuff all over our clothes. I'm sitting on this patio furniture. Guarantee this patio furniture, I know this patio furniture has a huge tag on it, and it says something like, according to California proposition, whatever number it is, whatever law they've passed, that they put flame retardants and all kinds of chemicals to coat it so it won't ignite as easy, right? Well, those flame retardants and stuff, those can be absorbed transdermally through my skin. And the foam rubber that's in this cushion, that also has flame retardants in it as well. I mean, there are 85,000 chemicals that are used in agriculture and industry today. They're in our water. Very few of them we don't even know if they're in our water, because the water treatment plants and facilities are really just designed to try to filter out the pathogens so you don't get sick. But still, everyone else in the world that's using the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of prescriptions every single day in your community, urinating it into your water supply, and then it goes into your local river or whatever your reservoir is, and then they filter this stuff. You're ingesting all that crap. And so, you know, we are bombarded with chemicals. Your body can react to those. And your body can react to a lot of these chemicals, like we know bisphenol A is a plasticizer. Many of the petroleum derivatives, the benzene rings are used to manufacture tons of different products used as petroleum-based. These things can get into our body and attach and bind to our tissues. Or your liver can start breaking them down, and as soon as it takes them through the first phase of metabolism, they're then immunologically reactive. You can have an immune response to them. So if you don't clear them once they've gone through the first phase of detoxification, you might have some problems. And so all this stuff, I like to assess those things. I like to look at those things so that we can put together, we can say, all right, here's what you are reacting to, which is going to be different than what everyone else is reacting to. No one has the same immunological reactivity, period, ever. We are all have bioindividuality. We all have our unique individual reactivity to things that drive our immune response. So we like to look at those things. I like to look at vitamin and mineral status. I like to look at vitamin D, glutathione. I like to understand if the person has what they need for their body to carry out normal biochemistry. Can they regulate? Can their immune system have a regulatory response? There's just so much to it, but it's at the same time, you know, once you've gone through this enough, and I've experienced this and I've worked with enough people, that the system becomes pretty routine with like the assessment. And I tend to work up autoimmune conditions the same. So I've worked with so many different autoimmune conditions. It's just interesting that you know people don't have just one autoimmune condition. If you're able to do an assessment for multiple tissue antibodies to look to see if they have antibodies against other tissues, which we do that pretty often with people, you almost always find that there's additional tissue reactivity. Almost always. There's so if they know they have a thyroid condition, you'll find reactivity against the lining of their stomach, or you'll find celiac disease, or you'll find reactivity against their joints or their brain. You find cerebellar antibodies, and it's just autoimmunity expands to other tissues. So you don't want to sit still and just say, oh well, I'm taking this medication. You need to find out if you're autoimmune. If you don't know if you have Hashimoto's, you need antibody testing. And then if you find out that you're autoimmune and you have a very high likelihood, then you have to start putting together some type of strategy. You either get some kind of testing or you start changing your diet up. You know, those are the things that you really need to do. You start eating whole foods. I mean, the simplest things that I could tell you to do is like eat whole foods, take a good quality multivitamin so that you make sure you're getting the basic vitamins and minerals. You cannot be low and deficient in vitamin D. You cannot. It's absolutely imperative. It's critical that you have normal and adequate vitamin D. I mean adequate, which is not lab range. It's not the lab range for vitamin D is 30 to 100. I like to get people around 70, about the top 3/4 of the reference range, or the top 25%, I should say, of the reference range. That way they have a better regulatory response. The immune system can produce regulatory T cells. It helps to balance the immune regulatory function. So just some basic things like that. Get sleep, set a routine for your sleep cycle, get to bed on time, wake up at the same time, start tracking how you feel, get some movement practice in, just walking. Our lifestyle is not congruent with our biology. Do you understand that? Like, so many people are like, why are we sick? Why is there this huge wave of autoimmunity? Why do we have this huge wave of neurodegeneration where people are dying and getting it at extremely rapid rates? Alzheimer's disease, cognitive decline. It's because our biology is not congruent with the environment that we have evolved into in a very short period of time, like this modern world that we live in, where we place all these stresses upon ourselves. We're just not congruent with that. Our physiology is not congruent with that. So you have to find ways, and because we're all going to have different reactivity to the environment. So we all have different genes, and our genetics based on our genetics, we will have a different response to the environment. So that means the environment's everything. Environment's the food that you eat. Environment's the stress that is placed upon, or that you subject your body to. Or maybe you don't. Maybe it's just something you can't avoid. But the stressors, the chemicals, everything, anything that our body's exposed to triggers a genetic response. That genetic response is what causes the manifestation of our symptoms, or our, if you want to label a disease process, that disease that has that medicine labels today. It really comes down to adaptive physiology of our body. Like, why is the body responding the way that it is to the environmental inputs? And when you're autoimmune, we tend to find foods, pathogens, chemicals, poor nutrient status, poor stress response, poor lifestyle habits, poor sleep, poor movement patterns, just incongruent with health, and people get addicted to the convenience of our modern society, And it's not that you have to like move off grid or anything. I don't think that that's a practical answer at all. There's way too many people that's not even an option if they went that far, and who knows, that may not have all the benefits it's cracked up to be either. The main thing is that you have to assess these pieces of your these factors that influence your health very, very critically, and in a way that you're not going to get in your medical doctor's office. It's just not going to happen. They don't think this way. And it's not that they don't want to think this way. It's not that they're not smart enough to think this way. It's that the system that you're going to is a sick-based system. It's a system based on the identification of a disease process. And then the way that a disease process is managed or is handled is completely based upon, it's usually based upon a medication. They don't have time to go into this. They're just trying to stop the bleeding and the crisis, all these crises that are unraveling around them. People come in to see the doctor and they're such a mess. It's like, you can't start with that person with just like what to eat. You got that person, they have to do so many things just to patch, stop the bleeding, so to speak. It's really, this is why there's no other way to, I think, improve our health other than to educate ourselves and the population as a whole. I don't think there's any other way. You can't expect a medical system that's not even designed around optimization of health, but just disease and identifying disease, which is fantastic, and I'm very thankful for that. You can't expect that system to take on the burden of optimizing people's health. We have to be our own advocates. We have to educate ourselves. We have to be actively participating in our own health care. And that's how we're going to have to do it. That's why I'm just going to get on here and repeat myself over and over, because I can't share this message with people enough. Anyway, I hope y'all are having an awesome Father's Day. I cannot believe how beautiful it is out here today. It is an absolutely amazing day. Like, it's not too hot. I mean, it feels like it's, I don't know, like low 80s. There's a very, very slight breeze, and it is just absolutely amazing. It's one of those days. Let's see, what was it? Friday was like that here. So it's Sunday the 16th of June, and Friday was, well, yesterday was a beautiful day, but it was a beautiful day. It's been a beautiful weekend. Friday was absolutely amazing. Just, I cannot describe how beautiful the day was. I worked on Friday, and I had a lot of administrative stuff to do, and I'm working on the 6-week transformation challenge, which is almost done. It should be done today, actually. There's just some programming stuff that's going on that I'm waiting on some responses from the technical team to help me out with it. But I've been working. I had to work all day Friday, which I'm okay with that. But it was just, I walked outside and it was one of those days I was like, oh my God, could this just be one of those days I could just leave? And that I could just go outside. So I just made sure to get outside and just breathe, take some deep breaths, walk around a little bit, feel the sun on my skin, and appreciate the beautiful day. It's a lot like today. So yeah, that's what's been going on. But yeah, I hope that helps to answer some of the questions about the inflammatory issues. This has been, a lot of this live stream's been in reference to a link to an article that I posted. It was actually a research paper that I posted on our Facebook page. If you go to Facebook and you go to the office of Dr. Brad Shook, you'll see it there. There's an article I posted about the impact of inflammation on the brain and how it affects motivation. It lowers motivation, how it can dampen, and contribute to poor motivation, and then also depression and inflammation. Inflammation, definitely, I've seen that so much clinically. It's a huge connection there. And so people were asking, like, okay, what does this mean? Well, it means if you're inflamed, you're likely to have low motivation. It means if you're inflamed, you're likely to have to be depressed. And so when you ask, well, what do you do about it? Well, you've got to figure out what's driving the inflammation. There's just no other way around it. I mean, when you go to primary medical physicians for this, and you tell them their symptoms, they don't check inflammation. They don't understand that connection yet. I mean, they understand, like, when they see people in the hospital that have very high inflammatory levels, they understand that, that they see someone with, like, the flu, for example. Well, that creates a lot of cytokine sickness, where these inflammatory chemicals or these proteins produced by the immune system are at very high levels, and then they feel terrible. But it doesn't, they're not as in tune with any subtleties or how to think, well, okay, I need to check to see if this person has a high inflammatory load. Because guess what? Your insurance, as of today, does not cover that kind of stuff. You can't just order inflammatory. The person's depressed, and they come in with depression, and the doctor goes, well, let me look and see what your insurance covers. But it doesn't cover checking inflammatory markers. They should. With all the literature out today, they should, because that could be a major driver. But then what is a doctor going to do? What's your primary care doctor going to do for inflammation? Maybe check your white blood cell count. Doubtful, though, because if you don't present with, like, signs of an infection, then they don't have medical necessity for it. So it's ridiculous, quite frankly. I mean, it works for, if you're in an emergency situation. When it comes to chronic disease, good luck. You can't do that. That's why I can't participate in that system. People will contact my office and they'll be like, well, why doesn't insurance cover this? It's because insurance doesn't cover it. It's not that we wouldn't take it. It's just that they don't cover it. They don't cover it. Not we don't take it. They don't cover it. It's one of those things where, if they covered it, a lot more people would probably have access to it. But they don't cover it because they have guidelines. There's a whole bunch of there's a lot of controversy out there when you look at this and you say, well, if what you do, like what I do, like a functional medicine, precision approach to healthcare, where you do more testing on the front end, you help to understand driving factors behind what is contributing to the person's symptom manifestation or their manifestation of a disease, like what biochemical is breaking down that might be contributing to that, and then how do we help them to reverse those dietary lifestyle habits and things that are, causing this progression of a disease. Which, if that works, people say, well, if that works, then why doesn't my insurance cover it? Well, your insurance doesn't cover it for a lot of reasons, because they base their coverage off of what are called best practices, which are usually formulated by administrators, doctors, nurses, based on research, which is published in journals, which is primarily, you can't do like randomized controlled trials on a lot of the things that we're talking about here, diet and lifestyle. It's not that it can't be done, but it's extremely complicated. It'd be extremely complicated versus just like trying to determine the efficacy of a drug based on one biomarker. They just get a bunch of middle-aged men, no women, because women's hormones fluctuate too much, no one too old, no one too young, put them all in this group, measure their biomarkers initially, give them a drug, reassess their biomarkers and see if one marker changed. Oh, yep, were there any side effects? And I'm really oversimplifying it, but that's, women take most of the drugs and they're like in almost none of the research studies. Kids, how many of these things have been tested on kids, or really a trials done with kids? Like zero, like none of them. But how many kids take pharmaceuticals and all that stuff and it's considered okay? It's not, there's no value to it, but come on, man, this whole evidence-based approach is it's not what it's cracked up to be. Like you want to use it as a justification to like cover things or not cover things, and I just think it's insufficient. It's I understand, I get the idea behind it, but it could be abused. I get the idea and the desire to want to only to be conservative with where we spend our insurance dollars and whatnot for care, to make sure that unnecessary things and only the most important things, or only things that are effective, are being done. But you got to give me a break here with this. Insurance companies, think about this for a second. Insurance companies can actually benefit by more people being sick. It's like, well, wait a minute. If it saved the insurance company so much money, why wouldn't an insurance company just do all the stuff that's going to save it money? Like, because then they're going to pay out less money, so they have less money. And, well, not really, not necessarily. If more people are sick and if treatments cost more, then theoretically they could just charge more for coverage. So you have more sick people that need more treatment that costs more money, and so you can increase the cost and the cost and the cost. You have to be your own advocate. You have to educate yourself. You have to be an active participant in your healthcare. I still, I talk about these things. I don't think there's a conspiracy against people, but I think that anytime that you give a system so much power, becomes sometimes understanding what's the right and wrong can become very cloudy. I think that I don't know. It's just, I'm ranting now, but I've just seen so many people that can't get access to healthcare because they don't have insurance coverage, or because they're just poor, like half of the population. They just don't have money to spend on all this crap. That they get the worst healthcare. If you don't think that healthcare in the United States has multiple tiers, you're crazy. You are crazy. You're crazy, because I see it firsthand. Because I work with people that I can't, like, since there's no insurance coverage, I can't take insurance. I can't work for free. I have to pay, for my practice and my overhead, my staff, and all that good stuff. So I have to charge for the services. So that and it's not more than some specialists. Some specialists you have to pay more out of pocket to go see them than you do for a first visit with me. So it's not that it's that much, but if you want to get testing and you want to go further into testing, you can spend, on average, I would say if someone gets testing, they spend $3,000 or $4,000. And yeah, I know that's a lot of money. Like that alienates a lot of people. They don't have that option. And so if you don't think that there's a tiered healthcare system, you're crazy. There is, because guess what else? Like, so I'm very familiar with like regenerative medicine. I've studied that pretty extensively. I'm familiar with stem cell therapy, peptide therapy, platelet-rich plasma, a lot of different types of technology that would be designed to improve and enhance human physiology. I'm familiar with a ton of stuff like that. And all that stuff is cash-based. Every bit of it's cash-based right now. And it's, so if someone's sick and they can't get, they could use a knee replacement. Or they might be a candidate for some type of regenerative medicine procedure. Like, you guys probably don't even know what peptides are yet, and that's cool, that's fine. But I'm just telling you, like, you're going to see an explosion in healthcare where you used to see hormone clinics pop up. Now you're going to see peptide. You're going to see clinics using peptides, which is basically portions of hormones where they break the hormone protein into pieces and they administer the portion of the hormone to stimulate very specific cellular responses at a receptor-based level. You're going to see those popping up everywhere, and you're going to and so stem cell therapy has been one that's been pretty controversial, and I understand why. But there's some great outcomes from stem cell therapy. I think that's going to be a huge factor in the very near future. I think it's already a factor if you can get the right type of treatment for what your problem is. And then platelet-rich plasma, taking your own blood platelets. All these things are fantastic, unbelievably fantastic technologies that could help people that a lot of people that are really sick will never have access to. So there's a multiple-tiered healthcare system. You better believe there is. If you've got money to pay for it, you can get access to it. That's why we have to teach this stuff. The things that I share with you guys, we have to teach this. We have to make this something that as communities we can all implement. That we have to have there has to be a movement towards understanding the dietary, the lifestyle factors, the things that we can all do by choice that promote, in most of us, right? Promote health or promote disease. Because one way or the other, the steps that you're taking every day are either promoting health or they're promoting disease. So what kind of things can we start doing right away to help us? And that's what I try to teach a lot of this. I try to teach a lot of these things because it's really tragic what's happening. And I mean, you see, because I see kids, man. Do you know how many parents reach out to me with their kids being sick? Do you know how sickening that makes me feel? That's absolutely unbelievable that we have this it's not just, a lot of times we think, oh, people get sick and you think of like yourself or you think of someone old. No, they're kids. There are tons of problems. And that's why we have to be our own advocates. We have to change some things up here. We have to become aware. We have to be, you guys have to get out there and help make changes and spread the word about this type of stuff, because no one else is really. There's no money in it. You might think there's money in it. There's no money in it. I mean, there's money in people paying for some of the services, yeah, but did you realize the real tragic and the real loss of money here is in the medical management of these chronic diseases. That's what's going to bankrupt the world. Try to take just Alzheimer's by itself is projected. The World Health Organization projects that Alzheimer's by itself will bankrupt the world. The entire world cannot. If you're talking about like 1 in 4 people having dementia or Alzheimer's, it's going to bankrupt the world, because you've got the person that can't take care of themselves. Then you've got to have a caretaker, someone that can take care of the person. And that leaves, 2 out of 4 people that can work? There's just no way. There's no way. There's no way. We have to change the factors that are promoting the disease process from day one. We've got to start doing that now. So, this is where inflammation takes me. It takes me down the wandering path of ranting about the problems of healthcare, a lot of the inequalities in healthcare, a lot of the injustices. It's ridiculous. Yeah, so anyway, I wish I could see comments, but I can't. I'm using a program that just streams our video, but I can't see your comments. I am working on today. I was working on the transformation challenge. It's should be available today, as long as the programmers fix one or two things that need to be fixed. And that's one of the ways we're going to teach people what to do. We're going to teach it. It's going to be $1 too. So we're going to charge a bunch for it. It's going to be $1. Yeah, it is. It's going to be $1. Like literally, I'm charging like $1, and we're going to teach people everything that I could condense in a simple format into a challenge, a program to take people through the dietary, the lifestyle, and the nutritional supplementation strategies that we have seen work with people clinically over a 10-year period, with these patterns that we've seen emerge that just about everyone needs to, things that they need to do. And I put it into a format that it literally cost me more to provide that to people. Like it cost me more than $1 to provide that to people. But we're going to offer it at an extremely low cost to try to help people help themselves. That's what we've got to do. And then I have like 500 videos where I teach this stuff, like on our Facebook page. Oh, but I think it's probably about time. It's probably about time for me to get out of the sun. I wonder what time it is. Oh yeah, I need to get out of the sun. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. Listen, I hope y'all have a wonderful day. I hope this helps to answer some of the questions about inflammation, why it's such a big factor, how it can affect your physiology, how it can affect your mood, your motivation. If you're having problems with your mood and your motivation, guys, you've got to get to the driver of the process. It's not just your thyroid. I mean, most people think that when they have a thyroid problem, this is my thyroid. Well, it's probably an autoimmune process. It's probably inflammation. So you have to get help. You have to figure out and cast a wide enough net to understand the physiology that's likely breaking down and contributing to the problems that you're having. But the first step is to become aware of the problem. And I hope that this helps you to become aware of the problem today. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. I hope you'll have a wonderful Father's Day. I may do another live stream later. If they get the programming done for the Transformation Challenge, we're going to do enrollment for 1 week. I'm hoping that we can open it today. I'll try to do a really brief live stream later and share that with you if it's available. If not, I'll just let you know whenever everything's done. But this has been about a 6-week project. So hopefully it gets wrapped up and done, and I can share that with y'all later. But I hope y'all have a wonderful Father's Day, and I hope it's been helpful. I'll talk to y'all again real soon.